Hello, and welcome to PsyBox. Today we are exploring a single, massive question. In this video, we will first present the core hypothesis of a subterranean civilization. Second, we will analyze the scientific plausibility. Third, we will build a speculative picture of this civilization. Fourth, we will investigate how we might find its traces. And finally, we will discuss the philosophical implications for humanity. So, let us begin. What if there is another intelligent civilization on our planet, living in a world deep beneath our own? This question sounds like the opening of a classic fantasy novel. It conjures images of mythical underworlds and forgotten realms. But the reason we are asking this question today is not because of myths or legends, but because of a series of profound and startling scientific discoveries that have, over the past few decades, completely rewritten our understanding of life on this planet. We have been forced to confront a stunning new reality. The Earth's crust is not dead rock, it is alive. This discovery is the scientific hook upon which our entire, incredible hypothesis hangs. For most of our history, we viewed life as a thin, fragile veneer on the planet's surface, a green and blue film clinging to a dead ball of rock. Life was a solar phenomenon, and where the sun could not reach, life could not be. This assumption was shattered when we began to drill deep into the earth. In the gold mines of South Africa, over 3 kilometers down, biologists found water seeping from the rock that was teeming with bacteria. From oceanic drilling vessels, we learned that the solid basalt of the seafloor was a dense and thriving microbial habitat. And at the Kola superdeep borehole, our deepest puncture into the planet, we found the microscopic fossils of ancient plankton, preserved at a depth of nearly 7 kilometers in rock that was 2 billion years old. Everywhere we looked, we found the deep, hot biosphere. These are not just a few hardy survivors. This is a colossal, hidden world. Scientists now estimate that the total number of microbial cells in the Earth's crust is in the nonillions, a 1 followed by 30 zeros. The total weight of this life, its biomass, is estimated to be hundreds of times greater than the total biomass of all 7 billion humans on the planet combined. The vast majority of life on Earth, by mass, may not be on the surface with us at all, but deep within it, we are living on the thin, sun-bleached shell of a world that is profoundly, deeply, and mysteriously alive. The inhabitants of this world are the lithoautotrophs, organisms that literally eat rock. They derive their energy not from the sun, but from the slow, patient chemical reactions of minerals, hydrogen, and sulfur, powered by the Earth's geothermal heat. Some have even evolved to live on radioactivity, using the energy released by decaying uranium in the granite to power their metabolism. They are life powered by the planet's own internal engine. This discovery is the foundation of our supposition. If the Earth's crust can support such a vast and ancient world of microbial life, what is its ultimate evolutionary potential? If the base of a food chain exists, could a more complex ecosystem have evolved from it? Just as on the surface, where simple microbes in the primordial oceans eventually gave rise to the complex ecosystems of the rainforests and the savannas, could the same process have played out in the deep? Could these simple, rock-eating microbes have formed the base of a food chain that, over hundreds of millions of years, led to complex multicellular life, and eventually to intelligence and civilization? Before we proceed, we must make a clear distinction. This is not the fantasy of the hollow earth. We are not proposing a hollow sphere with an inner sun. The world we are exploring is far more scientifically grounded and far more alien. It is a civilization that could exist within the very fabric of the crust itself. In vast, continent-spanning networks of limestone caves, in colossal, empty magma chambers, and in the porous, fractured rock of the deep crust, which is thought to hold a volume of water greater than all the oceans on the surface combined. This is not a hollow world, but a honeycomb world. The greatest advantage of this world is its profound stability. Life on the surface has been a story of constant, violent interruption. We have been battered by asteroids, scoured by ice ages, and poisoned by supervolcanoes. The evolutionary game on the surface is constantly being reset to zero. The world deep within the crust, however, is a sanctuary. It is a planetary bomb shelter, almost completely insulated from the chaos of the sky. An asteroid impact that vaporized the dinosaurs would have been nothing more than a faint, distant tremor to a creature living 5 kilometers down. An ice age that encased the continents in a mile-thick sheet of ice would be completely irrelevant to a world warmed by the planet's own geothermal heat. This provides the single most important ingredient for the evolution of high intelligence: time, long, quiet, and uninterrupted geological eons. A stable, predictable environment where life could evolve, step by patient step, towards greater and greater complexity, without the constant threat of a planetary reset button. This is the great promise of the subterranean cradle. It is a place where evolution could have been playing a completely different game for a much longer time and with a completely different set of rules. To even begin to imagine what kind of life would emerge from such a place, we must first try to comprehend its sheer scale. We think of the Earth's landmasses as vast, but they are merely two-dimensional surfaces. The lithosphere, the Earth's crust, is a three-dimensional volume of immense proportions. The continental crust averages 30 to 50 kilometers in thickness. This is a realm so vast and so deep that our most ambitious attempts to pierce it are like a single needle prick on the skin of an elephant. The Kola Super Deep Borehole, humanity's deepest drilling project, reached a depth of just over 12 kilometers, and it was still not even halfway through the crust in its location. Within this colossal volume of rock, there are spaces vast, continent-spanning networks of limestone caves, ancient lava tubes, and deep, water-filled fracture zones. It is a world large enough and complex enough to house a history that we have never known. And it is in this context of a living, vast, and stable hidden world that the question of a subterranean civilization moves from the realm of fantasy into the realm of profound, scientific possibility. We have now established the setting for our hypothesis: a vast, ancient, and biologically active world hidden deep within the Earth's crust. A stable, protected incubator where life could have had a second, independent genesis, and where evolution could have run its course for hundreds of millions of years, uninterrupted by the chaos of the surface. This possibility is so immense and so close to home that it forces us to reevaluate the very questions we have been asking about our place in the universe. For decades, our search for other intelligent life has been defined by the deafening silence from the stars, by the profound and unsettling mystery of the Fermi paradox. If the universe should be teeming with life, where is everybody? We have proposed countless solutions to this paradox. Perhaps we are the first. Perhaps they are all dead. Perhaps they are hiding. But all of these solutions are built upon a series of deeply ingrained, surface-dwelling assumptions. Our entire search for extraterrestrial intelligence, from Frank Drake's equation to our most advanced radio telescopes, is predicated on the belief that any intelligent life will be like us. We assume it will evolve on a planet's surface, in a thin atmosphere, under the light of a star. We assume it will see the cosmos, feel the same curiosity, and inevitably develop technologies like radio that broadcast its existence across the void. We have been searching for our own reflection in the cosmic mirror. But what if we have been looking in the wrong place entirely? Let us propose a new and perhaps more powerful solution to the Fermi paradox. Maybe the great barrier to a civilization colonizing the galaxy is not a great filter that destroys them, but a great wall that contains them. The deep, rocky crust of a planet is a physical barrier orders of magnitude greater than a thin atmosphere and a gravitational field. For a civilization born deep underground, a species whose entire evolutionary history played out in a world of rock and geothermal heat, the concept of space would be a bizarre and abstract fantasy. Their sky would not be a transparent window into the cosmos. It would be a solid, impenetrable ceiling of rock. Their entire technological and philosophical trajectory would be, by necessity, inward-facing, not outward. Their space race would not be to the stars, but to the even more extreme pressures and temperatures of their own planet's mantle. Their concept of exploration would be to delve deeper into the crust, perhaps migrating to the theoretical, deep earth oceans of the mantle. The surface world, a place of impossibly low pressure, chaotic weather, and lethal radiation from a strange, burning ball in the sky, would be a far less compelling and far more dangerous frontier. In this view, the silence of the cosmos is not the silence of a graveyard. It is the silence of countless deep, warm, and stable homes, populated by civilizations that have no ability and perhaps no desire to shout into the cold, empty void of space. The universe might be teeming with intelligent life, but it could be overwhelmingly subterranean, forever hidden from our telescopes, each civilization locked within its own planetary cradle. The answer to "where is everybody?" could be simple. They are at home, deep underground, where life is safe and stable. We, the fragile and exposed surface dwellers, might be the true cosmic oddity. This, then, is the grand, audacious hypothesis we will investigate in this journey. We will proceed with the assumption that our planet may have hosted two separate, intelligent lineages, the children of the sun and the children of the stone. To build our case, we will embark on a structured investigation, a deep dive in 4 more parts. First, we will explore the hard science. We will not ask you to take this on faith. We will journey deeper into the incredible world of the lithoautotrophs, the rock eaters that prove life can thrive without the sun. We will examine the geology of the deep crust and the physics of a world of unimaginable pressure. Then, having established that foundation, we will step into the realm of disciplined imagination. We will become architects of the impossible. We will construct a detailed, plausible, and deeply alien vision of what this subterranean civilization might have been like, their senses tuned to vibration and heat instead of light, their technology forged from geology and biology instead of fire and metal. After that, we will become detectives. We will ask what ghostly traces, what improbable anomalies, such a hidden world might have left behind in the deep rock. We will investigate the seismic, gravitational, and chemical signatures that could betray the existence of a lost world. And finally, having journeyed through the science, the speculation, and the search, we will ask the most important question of all. What does this story, the story of our planet's hidden children, tell us about ourselves, the noisy tenants on the surface? This is not just a story about a civilization that might live under the ground. It is a story about the ground itself and the profound limits of what we think we know about the planet we call home. The greatest alien world we may ever discover is not millions of light years away. It may be just a few miles beneath our feet, a silent, sleeping giant upon whose back we unknowingly live our loud and chaotic lives. In our introduction, we opened a conceptual doorway. We have put forth the audacious hypothesis that we, humanity, may not be the first intelligent civilization to call this planet home, because another could have arisen in the vast, hidden world of the planet's crust. It is a story that resonates with our deepest intuitions and challenges our most basic assumptions about our place in the universe. But for this grand, captivating idea to be anything more than a work of fiction, it must be anchored in the bedrock of scientific truth. It must be plausible. Now, we must leave the realm of the grand what if and enter the world of the specific how. We must answer the fundamental question: is it even possible for complex life to exist, let alone thrive, miles deep in what we perceive as solid rock? To begin this investigation, we must first address the very notion of a living planet. For most of human history, the world beneath the soil was considered the realm of the dead. It was a sterile, inert, and geological domain. Life was a phenomenon of the surface, a thin, fragile green and blue veneer on a dead ball of rock. This was not a guess. It was a deeply ingrained assumption based on all available evidence. But over the past few decades, a quiet and profound revolution in biology and geology has been taking place. A revolution that has forced us to completely rethink the nature of our own planet. This is the discovery of the deep hot biosphere. It was not a single eureka moment, but a slow, creeping realization that emerged from a dozen different fields of science. Deep in the gold mines of South Africa, over 3 kilometers beneath the surface, microbiologists studying the water seeping from fractures in the rock found it to be teeming with bacteria, life that had been isolated from the surface for millions of years. On the other side of the world, oceanic drilling vessels, punching holes in the seafloor, discovered that the solid basaltic rock beneath the mud was home to dense and diverse microbial populations. And at the Kola superdeep borehole in Russia, humanity's deepest artificial point, scientists found perhaps the most startling evidence of all: the microscopic fossils of marine plankton, 24 different species of them, discovered at a depth of nearly 7 kilometers, embedded in rock that was over 2 billion years old. Their organic compounds had somehow survived the immense heat and pressure, a testament to the preservative power of the deep. Everywhere we looked, we found the deep, hot biosphere. These are not just a few hardy survivors. This is a colossal, hidden world. And recent scientific collaborations, like the Deep Carbon Observatory, have begun to quantify its almost incomprehensible scale. The number of individual microbial cells living in the rock beneath our feet is now estimated to be in the nonillions, that is a 1 followed by 30 zeros. The total weight, or biomass, of this life is estimated to be between 15 and 23 billion tons of carbon. To put that in perspective, the total carbon biomass of all 7 billion human beings on the planet is around 60 million tons. This means that the combined weight of the life in the deep earth could be up to 400 times greater than the combined weight of all of humanity. The vast majority of life on Earth, by mass, may not be on the surface with us at all, but deep within it, we are not living on a sterile planet. We are living on the thin, sun-bleached shell of a world that is profoundly, deeply, and mysteriously alive. The discovery that life is there is the first step. The next is to understand how it lives. What could possibly sustain such a vast biosphere in a world with no light, no air, and seemingly no food? The answer lies in the incredible organisms that dominate this realm, the lithoautotrophs, a name that literally means rock-eating self-feeders. These are the masters of the subterranean world, and their metabolism is the engine that makes our entire hypothesis possible. Unlike the chemosynthesis of the hydrothermal vents, which relies on a constant supply of chemicals from volcanic fluids, lithoautotrophs have evolved to extract energy directly from the solid rock itself, or from the trace amounts of water and gas that percolate through it. They have discovered a way to unlock the immense, slow, and patient chemical energy of geology. One of their primary fuel sources is hydrogen. Geologists have discovered that a process called serpentinization, where water reacts with iron-rich minerals like olivine deep in the crust, produces vast quantities of hydrogen gas. For these microbes, a hydrogen-rich environment is a banquet. They have evolved enzymes that can oxidize this hydrogen, capturing the energy released to build their bodies. Others have learned to eat minerals directly. They can metabolize sulfide minerals like pyrite or fool's gold, deriving energy by oxidizing the sulfur and iron. But perhaps the most alien and incredible energy source of all is radioactivity. The granite that makes up much of our continental crust contains trace amounts of uranium, thorium, and potassium, all of which are slowly, radioactively decaying. This process releases a steady stream of radiation. Certain deep microbes, like the remarkable Desulfrutis odoxviator, have evolved the ability to use this radiation. The radiation bombards the water molecules trapped in the rock, a process called radiolysis, splitting the water into hydrogen and oxygen. The microbes then simply consume the hydrogen as their energy source. This is life powered by nuclear energy. It is a biological nuclear reactor, a life form whose existence is completely independent of the sun and almost completely independent of the planet's volcanism. It is life powered by the very substance of the universe itself. And just as their fuel is alien, so is their method of breathing. With no free oxygen available, they have learned to breathe the rock itself. In a process called anaerobic respiration, they use other chemicals as their final electron acceptor, the role oxygen plays for us. They can breathe sulfates, nitrates, iron, manganese, and even carbon dioxide. They are perfectly adapted to a world without air. So, we have a vast, proven biosphere, powered by a metabolism that can derive energy from rock, gas, and even radioactivity. We have life. The next question for a potential civilization is, where could it live? The crust is not a solid, impenetrable mass of granite. On both a microscopic and a macroscopic scale, it is a world of hidden spaces. Most rock is porous, containing a vast, interconnected network of microscopic cracks and fissures, all filled with ancient water. This is where the microbial life thrives. But for larger, more complex life, there would need to be larger spaces, and the Earth's crust is full of them. There are the great karst systems, vast networks of limestone caves carved by the patient action of water over millions of years. The Mammoth Cave system in the United States is over 675 kilometers long. The Sac-Acton system in Mexico is over 350 kilometers long, and these are just the ones we have discovered, the ones that are close to the surface. It is almost certain that far larger, deeper, and more ancient cave systems exist, completely disconnected from our world. Then there are lava tubes. When a volcano erupts, the surface of a lava flow can cool and harden, while the molten river inside continues to flow. When the eruption ends, this river of lava drains away, leaving behind a vast, hollow, and structurally sound tunnel. On the Moon and Mars, where erosion is minimal, we have discovered lava tubes that are colossal, some over 1 kilometer wide and hundreds of kilometers long, large enough to house an entire city with room to spare. It is a geological certainty that ancient Earth, with its far greater volcanic activity, created tubes that were even larger. Most of the surface ones have long since collapsed or eroded away, but the ones that formed deep within the crust would be perfectly preserved, silent, empty, and stable highways and habitats waiting to be colonized. This is the hidden geography of the deep earth, a world not of solid rock, but of vast, undiscovered, and potentially habitable spaces. In the first part of this scientific inquiry, we established a profound and startling truth. The Earth's crust is not dead stone, but a vast, living biosphere. We have proven that life exists there in immense quantities, and we have identified its alien engine, the process of lithotrophy, a metabolism that allows life to feed on rock, gas, and even raw radioactivity. We have also identified the potential habitats for more complex forms of this life, the vast, hidden geographies of deep cave systems and ancient lava tubes. We have, in essence, proven that the subterranean world is a viable habitat for microbes. But for this world to be a plausible cradle for a civilization, it must provide two more essential ingredients, the two things that all complex life, as we know it, absolutely requires: a stable supply of liquid water and a breathable atmosphere. The search for water on other planets is the central obsession of modern astrobiology. Where there is water, there may be life. It would be ironic, then, if the largest single reservoir of water on our own planet was the one we have systematically ignored. For centuries, we have thought of Earth's water as being in the oceans, the ice caps, the lakes, and the rivers. But recent geological discoveries have revealed that this is only a fraction of the story. The Earth's crust, and the mantle beneath it, may hold a colossal, hidden ocean of its own. This subterranean water does not exist in a great, hollow cavern. It is held in two primary ways. First, in vast, deep aquifers, networks of porous and fractured rock, saturated with water that has been trapped for millions, or even billions, of years. These are not the shallow aquifers we drill for our own wells. These are continent-sized reservoirs, kilometers beneath the surface. Second, and perhaps most significantly, water is held within the molecular structure of minerals themselves. In 2014, scientists studying a rare diamond that had been forced up from a depth of over 600 kilometers from the Earth's mantle found it to contain a tiny inclusion of a mineral called ringwoodite. The significance of this discovery was immense. Ringwoodite, under the immense pressures of the deep earth, can hold up to 1.5% of its weight in water. Given the vast amount of ringwoodite believed to exist in the Earth's transition zone, Scientists now calculate that there could be more water locked away deep inside the planet than in all of the world's surface oceans combined. This means that a subterranean world would not be a dry one. It would be a world of immense, ancient, and chemically rich water resources. This water would not be stagnant, driven by the same geothermal heat that provides the energy for life. It would likely have its own slow, ponderous hydrological cycle of convection and circulation, a millennium-long current that would distribute nutrients and energy through the deep crust. This creates the concept of a habitable zone, not around a star, but within the crust itself. Too shallow, and life is subject to the chaos of the surface. Too deep, and the temperature and pressure become too extreme, even for the hardiest of extremophiles. But in a Goldilocks zone, perhaps between 5 and 15 kilometers down, the conditions could be perfect, a place with access to both the planet's geothermal energy and its vast hidden ocean. A perfect, stable, and water-rich environment for life to evolve. But this leads us to the single greatest challenge for our hypothesis, the problem that would be the great filter for any aspiring subterranean civilization, the creation of a breathable atmosphere. In a sealed underground environment, the air is not a given. It must be actively and perfectly managed. For any complex, animal-like life to exist, it would need a supply of an oxidizer, like oxygen, to efficiently burn its fuel and produce energy. On the surface, our oxygen atmosphere was created over billions of years by photosynthetic cyanobacteria as a waste product. What would be the equivalent in the deep? The answer, once again, comes from the planet's own fundamental forces. The same process of radiolysis, the splitting of water molecules by natural radioactivity in the rock that produces hydrogen for fuel, also produces free oxygen. In the early stages of a subterranean ecosystem, this oxygen would be a deadly poison to the anaerobic microbes, just as it was to the early life on the surface of Earth. The first great evolutionary leap for complex subterranean life would be to evolve a tolerance for this poison, and the second would be to evolve the ability to use it to its advantage, to breathe it. This natural, radioactive production of oxygen might be enough for simple life, but a sprawling civilization would need far more. They would have to become engineers of their own atmosphere. This is where their mastery of biotechnology, which we will explore in the next chapter, would be a matter of life and death. We can imagine them creating vast, bioengineered ecosystems, subterranean forests that are not made of trees, but perhaps of massive, slow-growing, fungal or lichen-like colonies. These organisms would be chemoautotrophs, drawing their primary energy from the rock, but they could have evolved or been engineered to perform a secondary metabolic process that releases oxygen as a waste product. Their cities would not just be carved from the rock, they would be vast, living terrariums, with every surface covered in the organisms that produced their air. This would necessitate a perfect, closed-loop system. Other organisms or technologies would be required to scrub excess carbon dioxide, methane, and other waste gases from their sealed atmosphere, perfectly recycling every single atom. Their understanding of atmospheric chemistry and ecosystem management would have to be absolute. On the surface, the atmosphere is a vast, forgiving buffer. In a sealed cavern, a tiny imbalance, a single runaway process, could lead to rapid suffocation or poisoning. Their very existence would depend on maintaining a perfect, life-giving equilibrium. If we can accept that these immense challenges of water and air could be solved, we arrive at the final, crucial component of our scientific case, the argument from stability. Life on the surface has been a story of constant, violent interruption. It has been a game of evolutionary snakes and ladders. A species can spend 100 million years climbing the ladder of complexity only to land on a square-marked asteroid impact or supervolcano and be sent right back to the beginning. The Permian-Triassic extinction event, the Great Dying, was a planetary fever, triggered by colossal volcanic eruptions in Siberia that lasted for 1 million years. It pumped enough carbon dioxide into the atmosphere to cause runaway global warming. The oceans heated up and became acidic and starved of oxygen. It was the closest our planet has ever come to total biological annihilation, wiping out an estimated 95% of all species. The Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction, which killed the dinosaurs, was a different kind of apocalypse. It was a sudden, violent trauma, an impact that triggered a nuclear winter and collapsed the photosynthetic food chain almost overnight. These are just the two most famous of a whole series of devastating surface catastrophes. The subterranean world, by contrast, is a sanctuary. It is a planetary bomb shelter. The colossal mass of the Earth's crust provides an almost perfect shield. An asteroid impact is a distant tremor. An ice age is irrelevant. A supervolcano is a surface phenomenon. While life on the surface was being repeatedly burned, frozen, and poisoned, the deep world would have remained a realm of profound, geological scale stability. This means that a subterranean lineage would be an unbroken chain of life, stretching back not just millions, but potentially billions of years. While surface evolution was being constantly reset, subterranean evolution could have been a slow, patient, and continuous climb. This gives them an almost unimaginable evolutionary head start. The entire 65-million-year history of the age of mammals, the period that saw our own ancestors evolve from tiny, shrew-like creatures into the builders of cities, could be just a single, short chapter in their epic history. The time is not a problem. The time is the great, central pillar of the entire hypothesis. The deep Earth had the energy, it had the water, it had the space, and it had the time. It had all the necessary ingredients to become a cradle of life, and perhaps a cradle of a mind that is far, far older than our own. We have now established the fundamental pillars that could support a world within our world. We have a proven, thriving biosphere deep within the Earth's crust. We have identified its alien engine, a metabolism that can draw power from rock and radiation. We have mapped out its potential real estate, a vast, hidden geography of caves, lava tubes, and deep, water-filled fracture zones. And we have addressed the most critical resources for complex life, proposing plausible solutions for the challenges of water and a breathable atmosphere. But all of this, as remarkable as it is still not sufficient. For an ecosystem to progress from a garden of strange creatures to a cradle of intelligence, we require one final, essential component. We must identify the evolutionary pressures, the specific and relentless challenges of the subterranean world that would make a large, complex, and energy-intensive brain not just a luxury, but the ultimate tool for survival. Evolution is not a ladder, climbing inevitably towards human-like intelligence. It is a pragmatic, problem-solving algorithm, and intelligence is a very specific and very costly solution. A large brain is a metabolic furnace, consuming a disproportionate amount of a body's energy. Natural selection only favors such an expensive organ if it provides a survival advantage so profound that it outweighs this immense cost. For intelligence to arise in the deep crust, the environment itself must present a unique set of problems for which a bigger brain is the most effective answer. The first and most fundamental problem of the subterranean world is the problem of perception. Our world on the surface is saturated with information, carried freely on waves of light. We are bathed in a sea of data that tells us about color, shape, and distance. The deep crust is the opposite. It is a world of almost total sensory deprivation, of absolute silence and darkness. In such a world, our senses would be useless. Here, perception cannot be a passive act. It must be an active, energy-intensive one. Life must learn to create its own senses. The most logical and most powerful sense to evolve in a world of solid rock is a sophisticated seismic sense. This would not be a simple sense of touch or hearing. It would be the ability to interpret the faint, complex vibrations that are constantly traveling through the Earth's crust. This sense would have two modes. A passive mode, where a creature would simply listen to the constant deep pulse of the planet itself. They could feel the slow, grinding groan of a distant tectonic plate, the deep, rhythmic tremor of magma moving in a chamber miles below, and perhaps even the faint, chaotic vibrations from the noisy surface world above, a constant, meaningless hiss. But to navigate and hunt, they would need an active mode. They would need to become masters of their own form of echolocation, but one that used the ground itself as the medium. By generating their own controlled vibrations, perhaps by stomping their feet, striking the rock with a hardened limb, or through a specialized, resonating organ, and then interpreting the complex returning echoes, they could build a detailed, three-dimensional map of their surroundings. Consider the immense computational challenge of this sense. Their brain would have to filter out the massive background noise of the planet from the specific, faint echoes they are looking for. It would have to analyze the travel time and intensity of these echoes to determine the shape and distance of a cavern wall. It would have to interpret the subtle changes in the vibrational frequencies to discern the difference between a solid wall of granite, a pocket of soft clay, a vein of metal ore, or, most importantly, the unique vibrational signature of another living creature. This is a sensory system that directly and powerfully rewards computational power. The creature with the more advanced seismic processing unit in its head is the creature that can map its world with higher resolution, that can find new passages, locate water resources, and detect threats or prey from a greater distance. It is a direct and relentless evolutionary pressure for a bigger, more complex brain. This leads to the second great evolutionary driver, the unique arms race of a world without sight. The eternal dance of predator and prey, when played out through the medium of seismic vibrations, becomes a game of pure information and counter-information. It is a battle of wits, not just of speed or strength. A predator would not hunt by sight or smell, but by learning to recognize the unique seismic signature of its prey, the specific frequency and rhythm of its movement. It would have to become a master of predictive modeling to calculate a prey's likely escape path through a three-dimensional labyrinth based only on the vibrations it feels through the soles of its feet. In response, prey would be under immense evolutionary pressure to develop sophisticated forms of stealth. This is not the visual camouflage of a chameleon, it is seismic camouflage. A prey animal might evolve a way of moving with a soft, gliding motion that creates a minimal vibrational signature. It might develop a soft, fleshy body that absorbs vibrations rather than reflecting them. It might even learn to mimic the natural seismic background noise of the planet, effectively hiding its own signature in the constant hum of the earth. To counter these advanced stealth techniques, a predator would have to become even smarter, its brain evolving ever more sensitive filters and predictive algorithms. This escalating, cyclical battle of seismic stealth versus sensory acuity is a classic cognitive arms race, a powerful engine for driving the evolution of intelligence. Furthermore, in this invisible, high-stakes world, cooperation becomes a game-changing survival strategy. A lone hunter has only one point of perception, but a pack of hunters, working together, could revolutionize the art of seismic detection. By generating vibrations from multiple points simultaneously, and all listening to the echoes, they could perform a kind of biological seismic tomography, creating a complete, holographic, three-dimensional image of their prey in real time. But this level of cooperation requires an equally sophisticated form of communication. It requires a language, a system of transmitting complex, abstract information, position, intent, timing, strategy silently and instantly across a distance. A language not of sound through air, but perhaps of patterned, rhythmic, and meaningful vibrations tapped directly into the ground, a telegraphic language of stone. The development of such a language is inextricably linked to the development of abstract thought. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, there is the pressure of resource management in a world that is, on a geological scale, constantly changing. While the deep crust is a sanctuary from the chaos of the surface, it is not a static paradise. Tectonic plates shift, faults grind and build up stress, magma chambers cool and die, and deep water resources can migrate or dry up. This presents the ultimate evolutionary challenge, one whose solution is almost purely cognitive. The species that would not just survive, but thrive and build a civilization, is the one that would evolve to become the planet's ultimate geologists. They would need to develop a profound and intimate understanding of their world's long, slow cycles. They would need to develop geological foresight, the ability to interpret the subtle, long-term seismic and thermal cues that predict a major earthquake, a new volcanic intrusion, or the slow depletion of a vital aquifer. This would require the ability to think and plan not just in terms of days or seasons, but in terms of centuries and millennia. It would require the ability to create and maintain complex, multi-generational maps of their subterranean world. And it would require a culture, a system for reliably transmitting this vast and vital body of life-saving knowledge from one generation to the next. A species that had mastered this would no longer be just a clever animal. It would be a nascent civilization, its intelligence forged in a crucible of stone, darkness, and deep time. And so, we close this chapter having erected our final pillar. We have not just shown that the deep earth is a possible cradle for complex life. We have built a logical, scientifically grounded case for why that life would have been driven towards intelligence. The unique challenges of this world, the immense computational load of seismic perception, the cognitive arms race of an invisible world, the social demands of cooperation, and the existential necessity of geological foresight all point to a bigger, more complex brain as a powerful and direct evolutionary solution. The scientific case for the plausibility of a subterranean intelligence is now complete. We have built the stage, piece by piece. We have argued that the deep earth is not just a possible cradle for intelligence, but in some ways, a perfect one. Now that we have established what is possible, we can ask what is imaginable. If such a mind did arise in this world of stone and darkness, what would it create? What would its civilization, a culture born of the lithosphere, actually be like? In the preceding chapters, we have accomplished something essential. We have taken a seemingly impossible idea, that of an intelligent civilization born in the crushing darkness of the abyss, and we have built for it a firm foundation of scientific plausibility. We have demonstrated that the deep earth provides a powerful, non-solar engine in the form of chemosynthesis, that it is home to a complex biosphere of extremophiles, that it provides a uniquely stable incubator shielded from surface cataclysms, and that its hostile, three-dimensional darkness presents a unique set of evolutionary pressures that could make a large, complex brain the ultimate survival tool. We have, in essence, proven that the cradle is real. Now, we must ask the question that is the true, speculative heart of our journey. If such a mind did awaken in that eternal midnight, what would it create? What would its society, its culture, its technology, and its very perception of reality be like? To begin this act of creation, we must start at the very root of their existence, at a single, momentous fork in the road of technological development, where their path diverged so completely from our own that it would lead to a form of civilization that we would barely recognize. We call this the Promethean split. For humanity, all of civilization is a child of the flame. The story of our ascent from clever ape to planet-conquering species is the story of our mastery of fire. This was our first great technological leap, and it was so transformative that it reshaped not just our society, but our very biology. The cooking hypothesis, a powerful theory in modern anthropology, argues that the control of fire was the catalyst that made us human. Cooking our food pre-digests it, breaking down tough fibers and neutralizing toxins, which unlocks a massive surplus of calories. This caloric bounty allowed for a crucial evolutionary trade-off. Our guts could shrink, and the vast metabolic energy saved could be redirected to power the single most energy-hungry organ in the known universe, the human brain. Fire, quite literally, may have been the fuel that grew our consciousness. The campfire became the first human institution. It was a circle of light and warmth carved out of the primordial darkness, a bastion against the predators that stalked the night. It was a social anchor, a place where food was shared, bonds were forged, and perhaps most importantly, where stories were told. The complex symbolic language that defines us flourished in the long hours of the firelit night, a time that was no longer just for sleeping, but for community. And from this social and biological foundation, fire became the great gateway technology. It was the key that unlocked the hidden properties of matter, the fundamental tool of transformation that made every other advanced technology possible. Without fire, there are no ceramics to store grain and water. Without fire, there is no plaster or cement to build durable shelters. Without fire, there is no glass making to create lenses for our telescopes and microscopes. And, most crucially, without fire, there is no metallurgy. The ability to take a dull, worthless-looking rock and, by subjecting it to intense, controlled heat, to extract from it a gleaming, strong, and workable metal is the single most important technological process in our history. The Bronze Age, The Iron Age we name our great epochs after the materials fire gave us. Without the ability to achieve temperatures of over 1,000 degrees Celsius, there are no copper axes, no steel plows, no iron swords. There are no nails to hold our buildings together, no wires to transmit our electricity, no filaments for our light bulbs, no silicon chips for our computers, and, of course, without the controlled explosions of combustion, there is no steam engine, no internal combustion engine, no jet engine, and no rocket to carry our dreams to the stars. All of it, from a simple cooking pot to a city of skyscrapers to a mission to Mars, all of it begins with a spark. The abyssals would have no spark. In their world of cold, high-pressure water, fire is an impossibility. The very concept of rapid, energetic oxidation would be a bizarre and alien piece of theoretical chemistry. This single, absolute constraint is the fundamental law of their civilization. It is the great divergence. Their technological tree did not just grow different branches from ours. It grew from an entirely different root, in a completely different forest. Their solutions to the universal problems of survival, construction, and energy would, by necessity, be utterly and profoundly alien to our own. So if not fire and metal, then what? If you cannot shape dead matter with heat, you must learn to shape living matter through biology. This would be the first pillar of their civilization, a mastery of biotechnology so complete that it would blur the line between nature and technology. Their engineering would not be a matter of physics and mechanics, but of genetics, biochemistry, and advanced symbiosis. We will call it flesh shaping. Their toolkit would be a living ecosystem. Imagine a simple cutting tool. It wouldn't be a flint knife or a steel blade. It might be the radula of a giant, selectively bred gastropod, its thousands of microscopic teeth coated in a biologically produced ceramic, making them incredibly sharp and durable. For heavy-duty excavation, they might not invent a shovel, but instead cultivate a species of burrowing creature, guiding its instincts to carve tunnels or foundations. Their ropes would not be woven from hemp, but would be the living, collagenous tendrils of a modified siphonophore, capable of regenerating if damaged. This is not a world of machines that rust and break, but of living tools that heal and reproduce. And what of light? In the absolute blackness of the abyss, light would be a precious, almost magical commodity. Their only source would be bioluminescence. Their electricians would be geneticists, cultivating and engineering countless strains of bacteria, fungi, and algae to produce light of varying intensity, color, and duration. Their cities would not be illuminated by the harsh, static glare of electric bulbs, but by a soft, living, ever-shifting glow. Imagine vast, cavernous city chambers where the ceilings are lined with immense curtains of symbiotic bacteria, pulsing in gentle, coordinated waves of aquamarine and sapphire light. Streets could be lined with glowing fungal polyps that brighten as someone approaches. A home might be lit by a central, pulsating sphere of captive jellyfish, their rhythmic contractions casting soft shadows. Light for them would not be a brute force utility, it would be an art form, a living extension of their society. We have now imagined a civilization whose very homes and cities are not built, but are sung into existence from the living rock. This mastery of geology, the art of lithoforming, provides them with a permanent, stable, and secure foundation. But a perfectly carved cavern, however magnificent, is still a dead and sterile tomb. To turn these stone halls into a living world, the abyssals would have had to develop their second great technological pillar, a science so advanced and so integral to their existence that it would become a part of their very biology. This is their mastery of bioengineering, the art of creating a garden in the heart of the machine. This bioengineering would be their most versatile and most crucial science. In their sealed, subterranean world, there are no natural ecosystems to exploit. Every component of their biosphere, from the air they breathe to the food they eat, would have to be deliberately and perfectly engineered. Their greatest scientists would not be physicists, but geneticists. Their greatest libraries would not hold books, but a near infinite codex of genetic information. Their primary tool would not be a hammer or a lever, but a technology akin to a biological programming language, an ability to edit and write the code of life itself. We have already touched upon their most critical biological creations, the vast chemoautotrophic fungal forests that would act as the lungs of their civilization, and the glowing, bioluminescent gardens that would provide their light. But their mastery would extend far beyond this. Their living tools would not be limited to simple, single-purpose creatures. They would be capable of creating complex, multi-system biomachines. Imagine a living computer. It could be a vast, city-wide neural network grown from a specialized, silicon-rich fungal mycelium. This living web, its tendrils running through the very rock of the city, its growth patterns and bioelectric signals guided and interpreted by the inhabitants, could be used for complex computation, data storage, and environmental monitoring. The city would not just be their home, it would be their hard drive. Imagine their mode of transport for traversing the great intercity tunnels. It would be a massive, genetically engineered, worm-like creature, a biological tunnel-boring machine. Its mouth would be a marvel of bioengineering, capable of consuming the native rock. Its digestive system would be a high-temperature chemical furnace, vitrifying this rock into a smooth, glassy, and structurally sound lining that it would excrete behind it. The creature would simultaneously tunnel and reinforce the passage as it moved, a living subway train that builds its own track. Inside this great beast, passengers and cargo would be carried in protected, pressurized chambers. Their manufacturing would also be biological. A living factory would not be a single machine, but a carefully designed cascade of symbiotic organisms. The first organism in the chain would consume raw minerals. Its waste product would be the specific food for the second organism, which would then secrete a new chemical. This process would continue down a long, complex chain, each organism a single step in a biological assembly line, culminating in the production of complex chemical compounds, medicines, or construction materials. And, of course, there is the most fundamental biological challenge of all, the food supply. In a world with no sunlight and no soil, they would have to create a completely artificial, perfectly efficient, closed-loop food web. The base of this food web would be the great chemoautotrophic fungal forests growing on the cavern walls. These would be the primary producers. They would then design and breed a class of primary consumers, perhaps multi-legged insectoid creatures, that would be perfectly adapted to graze on these fungal mats. These grazers would, in turn, become the fodder for larger, more complex creatures, which would be cultivated as their primary source of protein. This would be their livestock. Every single atom in this system would be recycled. The waste products from the livestock would be broken down by specialized bacteria and reabsorbed by the fungal forests as nutrients. It would be a masterpiece of ecological engineering, a system with zero waste, a perfect, self-sustaining loop of life. Now, we can finally begin to visualize the abyssal city in its full, integrated glory. It is a perfect synthesis of their two great technologies. The macrostructure, the great bones of the city, are the vast, resonant caverns carved from the native basalt. The microstructure, the dwellings and halls within, are also carved from the stone, but their inner surfaces are not bare. They are coated with a living, self-repairing skin of engineered lichen, which helps to regulate humidity, purify the air, and provide a soft, bioluminescent glow. The city has a circulatory system, a network of channels transporting geothermal heat and water. It has a respiratory system, the vast fungal forests on the walls that produce its atmosphere. It has a digestive system, the waste reclamation zones, where every byproduct is broken down and recycled. And it has a nervous system, the citywide mycelial computer, its tendrils running through the rock, monitoring seismic activity, atmospheric balance, and resource flows. This city is not just a living ecosystem, it is a cybernetic one. The sentient inhabitants, their living tools, and the engineered geological structure would all be interconnected. A sudden change in the planet's seismic hum would be detected by the city's nervous system, which could then communicate a warning to the inhabitants directly, perhaps by altering the rhythm of the bioluminescent light, or by sending a specific low-frequency vibration through the floor. A drop in atmospheric oxygen in one sector would trigger the fungal lungs in that area to increase their output. The city would not be a passive environment. It would be an active, responsive, and intelligent partner in their survival. What kind of society, what kind of culture would arise in such a world, given their sensory abilities, which would make true privacy an alien concept, and their absolute dependence on a perfectly balanced, engineered environment? Their society would almost certainly be profoundly collectivist. The survival of the city, the great superorganism, would be the highest possible virtue. The dangerous, chaotic, and selfish whims of an individual would be seen not just as a character flaw, but as an existential threat to the entire system. Their social structure might be more akin to that of a beehive or an ant colony, with individuals bred or assigned specific roles for the good of the whole. Their perception of time would be geological, with no day or night and no seasons. The frantic, short-term thinking that defines so much of human culture would be absent. They would plan projects that take millennia to complete. Their own lives might be incredibly long, their metabolisms slow, their entire existence lived at a patient, deliberate pace that we would find almost impossible to comprehend. And from this unique perception of time and society, their art would emerge. Their music would be the songs of the stone, the creation of complex, resonant vibrations within their great acoustic cathedrals. Their painting would be the cultivation of their bioluminescent fungal gardens, the creation of vast, slowly shifting murals of living light that might take 10,000 years to complete a single cycle. And their highest art form of all might be ecological engineering itself, the design and creation of a new, perfectly balanced, and beautiful cavern ecosystem would be their equivalent of composing a grand symphony or painting a masterpiece. It would be an act of ultimate creation, a testament to their perfect harmony with the deep, living world they called home. We have now, in our minds, constructed the physical world of the lithospherians. We have imagined their technologies of flesh and stone, their living, breathing, and thinking cities carved from the bones of the planet. But a city, however wondrous, is nothing without its citizens. To complete our portrait of this hypothetical civilization, we must now venture into the deepest and most speculative territory of all. We must explore the nature of their consciousness, their society, their culture, and the profound philosophy that would arise from an existence lived in the eternal, silent darkness of the deep earth. To begin, we must revisit their sensorium. A mind is a reflection of the senses that feed it. Our human consciousness is a product of our eyes, a world of images, colors, and distant horizons. The lithospheric consciousness would be a product of the stone, a world of vibrations, densities, and intimate, transparent proximity. Their primary seismic sense would not just show them the shape of their world, but the inner workings of everything within it. This single fact, this world without privacy, without secrets, would be the absolute foundation of their social structure. The concept of the individual, as we in the West understand it, a private, sovereign, discrete consciousness. A ghost in a machine might be a completely alien concept to them. In a world where the anxious thrum of your neighbor's circulatory system is a palpable sensation, where the emotional state of your community is a constant, ambient vibration in the floor beneath you, the hard line between self and other would begin to dissolve. Their natural state would be one of profound connection, of enmeshment. They would exist in a state of ambient intimacy, always passively aware of the presence, location, and emotional and physical state of their kin. This would almost certainly lead to a profoundly communal or collective society. The survival of the city, the great superorganism, would be the highest possible virtue. The dangerous, chaotic, and selfish whims of an individual would be seen not just as a character flaw, but as a jarring, dissonant note in the quiet symphony of the collective, an existential threat to the entire system. Their social structure might be more akin to that of a beehive or an ant colony, a form of eusociality, where individuals are born into or assume specific roles for the good of the whole. Their sense of self would be a we before it is an I. Their greatest achievements would be communal, their greatest art forms would be participatory, and their greatest tragedies would be felt by all, a literal wave of grief passing through the very rock of their city. Their communication would be a reflection of this collective consciousness. It would be a total language, a simultaneous, multi-layered broadcast of immense data. A single utterance could be a combination of a complex series of patterned, seismic vibrations. The syntax and data of the message, accompanied by a specific thermal pulse to convey emotional intensity, and perhaps even the release of a complex pheromone to provide a layer of abstract context. Communication would be an act of total, honest, and incredibly efficient data transfer, a direct mind-to-mind communion of a sort, mediated by the physical world around them. From this collective soul, their culture and art would blossom. But what is beauty without light? What is art without an image? Their highest art form would be the art of sound and space, an art of pure vibration. A great lithospheric artist would not be a sculptor who carves a statue to be looked at. They would be an acoustic architect, a composer who designs a vast cavern or a crystalline chamber with precise, calculated resonant properties. The art would not be the chamber itself, but the experience of being within it. The civilization would gather in these great cathedrals of sound, and by producing choral, resonant vocalizations, they would play the architecture. The resulting patterns of overlapping echoes, constructive and destructive interference, and standing waves would create complex, moving, three-dimensional acoustic images and profound physical sensations in the minds and bodies of the participants. Their music and their architecture would be one and the same. It would be an art form that could only be experienced, not just observed. Their other great art form would be the slow, hypnotic ballet of their cultivated bioluminescence. Their paintings would be the living walls of their cities, vast canvases of bacteria and fungi engineered to shift through complex, pre-programmed patterns of color and light over vast periods of time. An abyssal epic poem might not be written in a book, but encoded into a living wall, a story that would take 1,000 years to unfold in its silent, flowing, luminous calligraphy. And with their hyper-developed chemical senses, their culinary arts would be a high form of expression. An abyssal chef could create a complex symphony of flavors and scents, released into a specific chamber, designed to evoke a precise set of memories and emotions. An art form as sophisticated and moving as any of our great musical compositions. And what of their philosophy, their search for meaning? A civilization with no knowledge of a sun, a moon, or a star would have a profoundly different cosmology. Their universe would be the planet itself. Their search for meaning would be an inward-looking journey, not an outward-looking one. They would have no astronomy, no concept of other worlds. Their gods would not be transcendent, sky beings, but the immanent, tangible, and active forces of their world. The geothermal core, the source of all heat and energy, would be their creator. The mantle, whose slow, grinding dance shaped their reality and measured out the ages, would be the force of fate, and the ocean of deep, ancient water that sustained them would be the great mother of all life. Their concept of time itself would be geological, with no day or night and no seasons. The frantic, short-term thinking that defines so much of human culture would be absent. They would plan projects that take millennia to complete. Their own lives might be incredibly long, their metabolism slow, their entire existence lived at a patient, deliberate pace that we would find almost impossible to comprehend. This would shape their view of life and death. The individual life would be a fleeting, temporary thing, a brief vibration in the eternal stone. But the collective, the city, the species, would be seen as effectively immortal, as permanent as the rock itself. Their goal would not be the salvation of the individual soul, but the continuation of the great, communal consciousness. And what would they think of the surface? Through their passive seismic sense, they would perceive it as a place of constant, chaotic, high-frequency noise. They would feel the crashing of the ocean waves, the howl of the wind, the violent and unpredictable swings in temperature. It would be their equivalent of a chaotic, burning hell, a realm of pure, destructive chaos just above their heads. The idea of going up would be a profound religious and cultural taboo, a journey into madness and death. They would be the ultimate isolationists, secure in the knowledge that their stable, quiet, predictable world was the only true reality, and the noisy chaos above was a meaningless anomaly to be feared and ignored. We have now completed our portrait. We have imagined a civilization of profound and beautiful alienness, a communal superorganism living in cybernetic, thinking cities carved from the bones of the planet. We have imagined their minds, which perceive reality through a symphony of geological senses, and their culture, which is a deep and intricate reflection of the planet's internal forces. It is a world complete in itself, a civilization that had no need and no knowledge of the stars. But we must now leave this realm of pure imagination and return to our own world, to our own science, and ask the final, most difficult, and most important question: if they existed, where are they now? and what silent, ghostly traces might they have left behind in the deep stone? In the vast, speculative theater of our minds, we have now constructed a civilization. We have given them a home in the deep rock, an engine powered by the planet's core, and a consciousness born of vibration and darkness. We have imagined their living technologies, their silent, resonant cities, and their profound, introspective philosophy. It is a complete and compelling vision of a world that could have existed, hidden beneath our own. But now, we must leave that realm of imagination. We must return to our own science, our own reality, and confront the most difficult and most critical question of all. If they were here, where is the evidence? Our journey now shifts from creation to investigation. We must become a new kind of archaeologist, a geologist of the impossible, a detective searching for clues at a crime scene of unimaginable scale and antiquity. The potential victim is an entire civilization. The time of death could be hundreds of millions of years ago, and the evidence has been subjected to the most relentless and efficient cleanup operation in the universe, the constant, indifferent, and powerful churn of planetary geology. The deep earth does not give up its secrets easily. If we are to find the ghost of this lost world, we must first understand the titanic forces that have conspired to erase it from existence. To grasp the monumental scale of this challenge, let us first consider the familiar science of human archaeology. When we dig into our own past, we find things that were built to last, or things that were lucky enough to be preserved. A shard of pottery, fired in a kiln, is a piece of man-made rock that can survive for millennia. A flint arrowhead is a tool that is almost as durable as the planet itself. A Roman gold coin is made of a noble metal that refuses to corrode. The stone foundations of a great pyramid resist the ages. Human history is legible to us because our ancestors made their world out of durable, inorganic materials, and because their ruins are, relatively speaking, just beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. The lithospherian civilization, as we have imagined it, would present an archaeological nightmare. Their world was a perfect, closed-loop system of biology and geology. Their bioengineered tools and organisms would have been consumed and recycled by their own ecosystem upon death. Their great fungal forests that produced their atmosphere would have simply decayed and been reabsorbed. Unlike on the surface, where fossilization can occasionally occur in anoxic sediment, their geologically active and biologically efficient world would have likely left no bodily traces whatsoever. Their entire organic civilization would have been efficiently devoured by its own creations. But what about their great cities, carved from the stone itself? Surely those would last? Here, they would face a force far more powerful than biological decay. They would face the slow, inexorable violence of the rock itself. Deep within the Earth's crust, under unimaginable pressure and high temperatures, rock is not a static, solid thing. It is a slow-moving fluid. Over millions of years, this process, known as metamorphism, can completely transform stone. A perfectly carved hull of granite can be squeezed, heated, and deformed until it becomes a contorted, banded rock called gneiss. A smooth, resonant tunnel can be crushed, folded, and recrystallized until it is nothing more than a strange-looking seam in the rock. Any artificial shape, any sign of intelligent design, would be warped, twisted, and ultimately erased, like a word written on a piece of paper that is then crumpled into a tight ball. Add to this the more familiar violence of tectonic activity. The constant, grinding motion of the plates would subject their world to earthquakes far more powerful than anything felt on the surface. Great fault lines would shatter and displace their cities, offsetting a single corridor by miles over millions of years. And finally, there is the ultimate destroyer, subduction. As we've discussed, the crust is constantly being recycled into the mantle. If their civilization was unfortunate enough to be built on a section of crust that was later subducted, its remains have been physically melted back into the magma of the planet. It is not just that the evidence is buried, it has been unmade at a molecular level. Faced with this trinity of erasure, total biological recycling, slow metamorphic transformation, and violent geological destruction, the search for evidence seems utterly hopeless. But the final, and most subtle, challenge is a human one. Our own profound biases. Our archaeological and geological search patterns are designed to find things we understand and expect. We dig in river valleys and fertile crescents. We drill for oil and minerals in specific types of sedimentary rock. We are not equipped, physically or mentally, to excavate at a depth of 15 kilometers, nor would we know what to look for if we were. A resonantly carved cavern, warped by eons of geological stress, would look to a geologist like a natural formation. We would be completely blind to their ruins because they would not look like ruins to us. So, where could a search possibly begin? We must abandon the hope of finding a tool, a body, or a building. We must instead look for the large-scale, indirect traces that their existence would have left on the planet's structure. We must listen for the faint, anomalous whispers in the Earth's deep heartbeat. Our first and most promising tool would be seismology. Seismology is our primary method for seeing inside the Earth. When a great earthquake occurs, it sends powerful waves of energy, seismic waves reverberating through the entire planet. We have a global network of thousands of seismographs that record these waves. By analyzing how the waves bend, reflect, and change speed, we have been able to map the planet's core, mantle, and crust with incredible precision. In essence, we use earthquakes as a form of planetary-scale ultrasound, and this technique could be the key to finding the impossible. The first clue would be the detection of impossible voids. The models our geophysicists use to understand the crust are very good. They can predict the density and properties of the rock at any given depth with a high degree of accuracy. What if, in a region of ancient, stable, continental crust, our seismic waves revealed something that should not be there? A massive, city-sized anomaly, where the waves suddenly slow down, or are scattered, or disappear altogether. A region that behaves seismically as if it were a massive, hollow, or unusually low-density space deep within what should be solid, high-density granite. A single such anomaly would be a mystery. A network of them, arranged in a non-random pattern, would be a sign of something else. It could be the seismic ghost of their great, carved caverns. Beyond looking for these passive voids, we could search for active signals. Our civilization makes a constant, low-level hum of seismic noise from traffic, industry, and construction. A vast subterranean civilization, with its own technologies and processes, would do the same. We could dedicate a portion of our global seismic network to a new kind of search, a subterranean SETI. We could listen not for random chaotic noise of earthquakes, but for patterned, repeating, or unnaturally rhythmic vibrations. It is a long shot, but the data is already being collected. We simply need to start looking for a different kind of signal. Complementing this seismic search, would be the science of gravimetry. The Earth's gravitational field is not uniform. It varies slightly from place to place, depending on the density of the rock beneath. By using incredibly sensitive instruments on the surface and in satellites, we can map these minute variations in gravity. A massive network of caverns, a region of the crust that is effectively hollow, would have a slightly weaker gravitational pull than the surrounding solid rock. Conversely, a city built from incredibly dense, artificially precipitated minerals might show up as a positive gravity anomaly. If a pattern of gravitational anomalies was found that perfectly corresponded to a pattern of seismic anomalies, the coincidence would be difficult to ignore. It would be a powerful, converging line of evidence, pointing to something strange and profound, hidden deep beneath our feet. Discovering a vast, geometric anomaly deep within the Earth's crust through seismic or gravitational mapping would be a revolutionary, paradigm-shattering moment. Yet, it would also be a singular, maddeningly ambiguous data point, a geological Rorschach test onto which we could project our own hopes and biases. To build a truly compelling case for a lost subterranean civilization, we would need to move beyond the search for grand, physical structures. We would need to zoom in, to shift our perspective from that of a planetary surveyor to that of a forensic geochemist. We must search for the evidence not in the shape of the void, but in the very molecules of the ancient rock itself. We must search for their chemical ghosts. This is the field of geochemistry, and it is here that the most subtle, but perhaps most convincing evidence may lie. While the organic bodies of the lithospherians and their living tools would have been recycled, their collective metabolic and industrial processes, operating on a vast scale for millions of years, would have inevitably altered the chemistry of their environment. They would have left a fingerprint. One of the most powerful forensic tools at our disposal is the analysis of isotopic ratios. Most elements exist in several stable forms, or isotopes, which are chemically identical but have slightly different masses. Life, in all its forms, is fundamentally lazy. The enzymes that drive biological reactions find it slightly easier and more energy efficient to work with lighter isotopes. Imagine a buffet with heavy and light food items. Life preferentially grabs the lighter, easier to process items. Over time, the accumulated waste organic matter will be enriched in the light items, and the leftover buffet, the environment, will be slightly enriched in the heavy items. This is not just a theoretical curiosity. We can see this process happening in real time, caused by our own industrial civilization. As we burn colossal amounts of fossil fuels, which are ancient, carbon-12 rich organic matter, we are releasing this light carbon back into the atmosphere, measurably lowering the global ratio of carbon-13 to carbon-12. This is a permanent, global, geochemical signature of our industrial activity. A future geologist could analyze the isotopes in a layer of rock from our time and see a sharp, dramatic spike that screams a global event involving the massive processing of organic carbon was happening here. A subterranean civilization, with a biosphere potentially numbering in the quadrillions, all processing geological carbon, would have left an analogous and equally dramatic signature. Their biochemistry would have had its own unique isotopic preferences for carbon, sulfur, and iron. In a deep earth rock sample, drilled from a depth of 10 kilometers and dated back to their era, we might find a sharp, inexplicable shift in these isotopic ratios that defies any known geological or biological model. It would be a chemical fingerprint of a lost global metabolism. It would be the silent, chemical scream of their biosphere. Beyond the broad signature of isotopes, we could hunt for more specific clues, biomarker molecules. Think of these as molecular fossils. When an organism dies, most of its complex molecules, like proteins and DNA, break down quickly under heat and pressure. But some molecules, particularly the lipids and sterols that make up cell membranes, are incredibly tough and resistant to decay. These molecular fossils can be preserved in solid rock for hundreds of millions, even billions, of years, acting as a chemical fingerprint of the type of life that existed at the time. Now, imagine our scientists are analyzing a rock sample from a deep drill core. Inside it, they find a whole suite of incredibly complex, unknown lipid molecules. These molecules are clearly biological in origin, but they do not match the molecular signature of any known domain of life on Earth. They are not bacterial, not archaeal, and not eukaryotic. They are something other. It would be the chemical equivalent of finding a Teflon molecule in a dinosaur fossil. It would be a tangible, molecular remnant of a lost branch of life, a domain X, whose existence could only be explained by a completely separate genesis or by an act of deliberate, intelligent design from a civilization that had mastered biotechnology. This chemical forensics could also extend to anomalous elemental concentrations. The civilization we have imagined was not just biological, it was geological. It actively manipulated mineral-rich fluids and likely processed vast amounts of rock. This industrial-scale geochemistry would have inevitably produced industrial-scale waste. In the rock record, this could manifest as a thin, bizarre seam of rock with an impossible combination of elements. Perhaps a layer with a startlingly high concentration of rare earth elements like neodymium and yttrium, alongside biologically important metals like cobalt and manganese. A geologist would be at a complete loss to explain a natural process that could selectively concentrate this specific, motley collection of elements in one place. It would defy all known models of volcanism and sedimentation, but it could be perfectly and simply explained as the chemical dump site of an ancient, advanced civilization. This all may seem like a highly theoretical exercise in detection, but we have one tantalizing, real-world example of what happens when we pierce this hidden world. It is the Kola super-deep borehole. Started by the Soviet Union in 1970, it was not a project for oil or mining, but for pure science, to see how deep we could possibly drill into the Earth's crust. For 2 decades they drilled, eventually reaching a depth of 262 meters, or over 6 miles. It remains the deepest artificial point on Earth. They never reached the mantle, but what they found on the way down was far stranger than anything they had predicted. Geological models had predicted that at a depth of 5 to 10 kilometers, the immense pressure would squeeze all the cracks out of the rock, making it a dry, solid, and impenetrable mass. Instead, the scientists were shocked to find that the rock was heavily fractured and saturated with hot, mineralized water. This water, they theorized, was not from the surface, but had been squeezed out of the rock crystals themselves by the immense pressure. This was a stunning discovery. It meant that liquid water, the great solvent for life, exists at far greater depths in the crust than previously thought possible, providing a key resource for any potential subterranean life. Then, there was the mud. The drilling mud that came up from the borehole was, in the words of the geologists, boiling with hydrogen gas. Hydrogen, a powerful energy source for the lithotrophs we discussed, was far more abundant at these depths than any model had predicted. The deep crust was not just wet, it was energy-rich. But the most profound discovery was the evidence of life itself. At a depth of nearly 7 kilometers, in rock that was over 2 billion years old, they found the microscopic fossils of 24 different species of ancient marine plankton. The organic compounds within these fossils had been perfectly preserved, despite having been subjected to pressures of hundreds of atmospheres and high temperatures for billions of years. The Kola superdeep borehole was a revelation. It was a single, tiny pinprick into this unknown world, and yet it confirmed the presence of all the key ingredients for our hypothesis: vast, unexpected quantities of water, an abundant, non-solar energy source, and proof that biological matter could be preserved in the deep rock for geological timescales. It proved that our understanding of the deep crust was profoundly, fundamentally wrong. And so, we have laid out the daunting task of the subterranean archaeologist. The search would be a multifaceted investigation for a pattern of anomalies. There would be no single smoking gun. The proof would be in the convergence of the evidence. Imagine a single region deep within a stable continental shield. Our seismic instruments detect a pattern of strange, geometric voids. A gravity survey reveals a corresponding mass anomaly. And a future even deeper, drilling project in that area brings up a rock core with a bizarre isotopic signature, a suite of unknown biomarker molecules, and a startling abundance of hydrogen gas. Individually, each of these findings is a mystery. Together, they are a manifesto. They would be the faint, ghostly, but undeniable echo of a lost world. This investigation, however, is predicated entirely on the fact that we are searching for ghosts. It leads us, inexorably, to the final, most chilling question of our entire journey. If they were here, if they built a world that lasted for eons, what happened to them? Why is the crust now silent? The answer to that question may hold the most important lesson of all. We have now laid out the daunting task of the subterranean archaeologist. We have learned what to look for: the improbable geometries, the chemical ghosts, and the tantalizing clues from our one real-world deep Earth experiment. But this entire investigation is predicated on one fact: that we are searching for ghosts. It leads us, inexorably, to the final and most chilling question of our entire journey. If they were here, if they built a world that lasted for eons, what happened to them? Why is the crust now silent? The answer, of course, is lost to time. But in the possible solutions to this final mystery, we may find the most important lessons of all. Each hypothesis for their extinction is a dark mirror, reflecting a potential fate for our own civilization. Perhaps their end came from within, a cautionary tale of intelligence turning upon itself. Their mastery of biotechnology, their ability to shape and create new forms of life in their perfectly balanced ecosystems, could have been their undoing. Imagine a genetically engineered organism created to recycle waste that mutated beyond their control, a biological plague perfectly adapted to their unique physiology, spreading through their interconnected cities with unstoppable speed. In our own age of CRISPR and synthetic biology, this possibility feels uncomfortably close to home. Alternatively, their mastery of geology could have been their downfall. In their ambition to create new homes or harness more energy, they might have tampered with forces they did not fully understand. An attempt to carve a new transcontinental tunnel could have destabilized a tectonic plate, triggering a catastrophic, continent-spanning earthquake that brought their world crashing down. It is the ultimate parable of hubris, a warning that tampering with the fundamental operating system of a planet can have consequences that are both unforeseen and absolute. Or perhaps their end was not so dramatic. Perhaps it was a slow, quiet, and inevitable decline. They were safe from the chaos of the surface, but they were not safe from the long, slow life cycle of the planet itself. The Earth's core, their distant, fiery sun, is not eternal. Over hundreds of millions of years, the geothermal output of the planet wanes. The great engine of plate tectonics slows. The chemical reactions in the rock that provided their food would have become less frequent and less powerful. Theirs would have been a slow, tragic extinction, a civilization clinging to the last embers of a dying planetary fire. A story not of a sudden cataclysm, but of a long, final winter. It is a profound reminder that no civilization can outlast the life of its star, whether that star is in the sky or at the center of the world. And then there are the stranger, more hopeful, and far more unsettling possibilities. What if they did not die at all? What if, faced with the slow decline of their world, they used their immense knowledge to transcend it? Perhaps they evolved beyond the physical form we have imagined, uploading their collective consciousness into the vast, crystalline structures of their cities, becoming a thinking planet, a geological mind. Or perhaps they simply moved on, journeying even deeper into the Earth's mantle. And of course, there is the most unnerving thought of all, that they are still here, silent, aware of the frantic, noisy, short-lived civilization that has infested the thin, dry shell of their world. And they are watching, listening, and, for reasons of their place, choosing not to be found. In the end, we have no evidence, and we may never have an answer. But the purpose of this thought experiment, the journey into the deep earth, was never truly about finding a lost civilization. It was about holding up a mirror to our own. This is the purpose of the PsyBox, to open a container of ideas that forces us to look at ourselves in a new light. The story of the lithospherians is one such mirror, and in its dark, silent surface, it shows us ourselves in three unsettling reflections. First, it reflects our profound biases. The entire thought experiment forces us to confront the fact that our way of being, our reliance on sight, our mastery of fire, our technologies of metal and combustion is not a universal template for intelligence. It is a local, contingent path, the result of the specific environment in which we evolved. The lithospherians show us that another path was possible, and that our assumptions about what to look for in the universe may be profoundly, cripplingly wrong. Second, their hypothetical story reflects our own breathtaking fragility. We, humanity, have had a civilization capable of recording its own history for perhaps 6,000 years. We have had industrial technology for less than 300. We act as if we are the permanent masters of this planet. The lithospherians, who may have flourished for 100 million years before vanishing, provide a dose of profound, cosmic humility. Their utter Disappearance is a mirror for our own legacy. It forces us to ask, in 100 million years, what will be left of our great cities, our art, our science? Will there be even a single anomalous molecule to prove that we were ever here? And finally, and most importantly, their story is a mirror that reflects not just our ignorance, but our recklessness. We live our lives on the surface, treating the deep earth as nothing more than a dead foundation to be drilled, fracked, and mined. We conduct deep underground nuclear tests that send shockwaves through the entire planet. We pump our industrial waste into deep geological repositories. We do all of this under the assumption that we are merely acting upon a dead and empty world. But this hypothesis forces us to reconsider. What if we are not the sole inhabitants? What if we are the noisy, chaotic, and unbelievably reckless tenants living on the top floor? Our most powerful acts of industry and warfare could be, from the perspective of a silent, ancient neighbor, a series of violent, inexplicable, and potentially hostile attacks. The great lesson of the children of the stone is not that we should stop looking up at the stars. It is that we must also, with the same passion, the same resources, and the same sense of awe, start looking down. The answers to our deepest questions about the origin of life, the nature of intelligence, and our own place in the universe may not be found in the faint signals from a distant sun. They may be locked in the ancient rock beneath our very feet. And so, our long journey into the deep earth and into the depths of imagination comes to a close. We began by asking, what if? And we end with the profound realization that the greatest alien world we may ever discover is not millions of light years away, but just a few miles beneath our feet. And that brings our video to a close. Thank you for watching PsyBox.